given some x sub t, b sub k sample frequency, we're going to start with finding our h sub w hat, finding your y sub w hat, and finding your y sub t. The first thing we really need to do is to actually find xw hat, because that'll come into terms later with yw hat. So to do that, let's start with our x sub t. So the very first step we have to do is convert all sines and cosines into positive cosines. So I will have x of t equals 5 plus 2 cosine of 500 pi t minus pi, and to convert from a positive cosine to a negative cosine, or a negative cosine to a positive cosine, we will add a pi. Minus 5, so it's going to be 5 cosine 1000 pi t minus pi divided by 2 plus 2 pi divided by 2. So let me go ahead and write this one more time. x of t equals 5 plus 2 cosine 500 pi t plus 5 cosine 1000 pi t, need another 0 here, plus pi divided by 2. Now we'll just divide by our sample frequency. So divide by 1000, divide by 1000, and so I will get x of n equals 5 plus 2 cosine of pi divided by 2n plus 5 cosine of pi n plus pi divided by 2. Now when you look at our frequencies, the issue here is we have something here which, well, I guess it will work because technically it just meets Nyquist, and yeah, so that will work. Just realize that if this was over pi, that you would have to shift it into the alias free zone, because if you didn't, you're gonna run some issues later. Pi is like directly on the alias free zone, so if we shifted it back to pi, you're just gonna get negative pi, so don't worry about this one. So we're gonna get x, remember the funky looking one, the xw hat equals 5ej0 plus 2ej0 plus 5ej pi divided by 2. This is that w hat equals 0, w hat equals pi divided by 2, w hat equals pi. Okay, what I want you to realize is this w hat is equal to 0. It is our DC component, and there is no phase associated with it. That's why we have ej0. This, we have 2. This is our w hat, pi divided by 2. There is no phase associated with it, so we have ej0. Then we have 5 cosine of pi divided by 2 is our phase, and this is at pi. Let me double check, make sure everything correctly. I'm just running through in my head. Perfect. Now let's start working on part A of h sub w, or h sub w hat. So let's find h sub w hat using our b sub k. So b sub k equals 5, 0, 5. I want to double check this, make sure I didn't write it down wrong. -5. Perfect. So we can write this as 5e to the j w hat and whatever n is attached to it. So I can write this as 5e to the j 0 w hat plus 0 e to the j -1 w hat minus 5 e to the j negative 2w hat. Perfect. Remember, this is like multiplied in as well. I'm not actually subtracting. So this is going to equal 0. So I can get 5e to the j 0w hat minus 5e to the negative j 2w hat. I want to put this in sinusoidal form. So the very first thing I will do is I'm going to pull out a 5, and I'm going to pull out a whatever e to the j0 is in the center. So I can pull out a 5e to the j negative j w hat. And I can multiply this, so I will get e to the j w hat minus e to the negative j w hat. Now this is very, very close to our sine. Remember, sine of theta equals e to the j theta minus e to the negative j theta all over 2j. So to get this, I need to multiply. Well, I think the question becomes, yep. So, sorry, I just want to double check something really quickly. -5, -5. I am going to have to multiply it by a j. So I will get 5, so sorry, 10. 10j e to the negative j w hat times and this will be over it, so I will get the sine of w hat. And this is our h w hat. Perfect. Now we can remember that j is equal to 10 e to the j pi over 2 e to the negative j w hat sine of w hat. Perfect. Now I can combine these terms to get 10 e to the j pi divided by 2 negative w hat sine of w hat equals h sub w. This is part A. Part B is now asking find y sub w hat. Perfect. Y sub w hat equals xw hat times h, I do not know why I did that, h w hat at the specific w hat. So I need to find it for each of them. So let's see what happens if, so let's look at the first one. Let's go to our x. We want at w hat equals 0, which is perfect. So we'll have y w hat, equals 0. Our x sub w hat was just equal to 5 times, and we'll have everything here. 10 e to the j pi over 2 minus 0 and the sine of 0. Well, the sine of 0 is 0. So this whole thing should go to 0. Yep. So I was doing math in my head. Y w hat equals 0 equals 0. Because the sine of 0 is 0. Now, let's do the next one. Y sub w hat equals, well, where was our next w hat at? Our next w hat was at pi over 2. So for this one, we had a 2. And it was ej to the 0. Ej to the 0 is just 1, so leave that alone. 10 e to the j pi over 2 minus pi over 2 sine of pi over 2. Well, the sine of pi over 2 is 1. 1. This is just going to equal 0. So I'm going to have 2 times 10 e to the j0 times 1. So this would just equal, so y sub w hat equals pi over 2 just equals 20. Now I need to find my last y sub w hat. So yw hat equals pi. Equals pi. So at pi, what did we have as our amplitude and our phase? So we had 5 e to the j pi over 2, I believe. Let me double check. Sorry, I'm lost. Sorry, I don't know where I put everything at. Here, 5 e to the j pi over 2. So let's go write that down. 5 e to the j pi over 2 times, now we'll just fill it in. So we have 10 e to the j pi over 2 minus 2 pi over 2 times the sine of pi. Well, the sine of pi is 0, so y sub w hat equals pi should equal 0, because we realize that goes to 0. So the only thing left that I have is w hat of pi over 2 equals 20. Everything else is equal to 0. So I have my final answer is this. It's just, so y sub w hat equals 20 at, equals pi over 2. Pi over 2 equals w hat. Now, so this is step B. Step C is now to just convert this into y sub t. Well, we can convert this into y of n by this will be 20 cosine pi over 2 n, and there's no phase associated with it. To get y sub t, cosine. Remember, we divided by 1,000 to get this. So we need to multiply by 1,000 to get our t. So y sub t equals 20 cosine. This will go to 500 pi t. And that is how you solve this final question. If you were to have more, obviously you would write them all out, but all of ours went to 0, so we don't have to worry about the rest of them. Thank you for watching.